All right, cool. Here we are. So my name is Jaineel Mistry. I'm a mind coach and the founder of Thriving Scholar. And today I'm super excited for us to have this reflection call. So for those of you that are watching either on YouTube or on the podcast, for those of you that don't know me, I'm the founder of Thriving Scholar. And essentially we are a company who are on a mission to create more high-performing conscious leaders in the world who are able to flourish and lead from within in service of the planet. And essentially putting that down to one sentence is we help people live true to their greatness. And part of that mission was to create something called Project Hero, whereby we had a group of entrepreneurial men who are on a mission to live with purpose, lead with courage, and perform at levels of an athlete. And so this is a group that I formed just over a year ago. And here we are about a year and 3 months after. We've got Luke, Alan, and Kunal here, who have been on an incredible journey. We've all been on an incredible journey, I guess. And so today, the whole purpose is, we're having a reflection call whereby we're just reflecting on the last year, and retrospectively looking at how things went and really celebrating the success that they've had. Normally, we would have done this privately. However, we thought that it may help other people by sharing our stories. It could help others, it could inspire others, it could show people what maybe is possible for them. So firstly, credit to you guys for being open to sharing this with the world. And I'm super excited for your friends, family, and people that you know to watch this as well. So cool, that's my blurb, that's my intro. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Amazing. All right, cool. So I think the way that we can run this in three parts. Number one is let's just kind of look back at where things were maybe a year and 3 months ago when we first started. Because when we put ourselves back in that situation, it kind of reminds us how things were and how far you've come. And then we can go into a bit about what you've actually achieved in terms of just reflect back on the internal as well as the external achievements, successes that you've had. And then the third part, I've got some questions to go a bit deeper on a few things and just to have a bit more fun with that. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. So I guess let's just reflect back. Like, if you were to kind of put yourself in the scenario where the situation that you were in prior to joining Project Hero, where were you? What were you most struggling with? What were the biggest problems that you were, I guess I say problems, but it's not, where were you essentially, right? What were your biggest struggles at that time? So obviously Luke and Kunal, you guys had worked with me one-to-one prior to joining Project Hero, and Alan, you just popped out of the blue. So I guess that's what but even before we do that, let's just do a round of introductions. So, I guess Luke, Kunal, and Alan, if you just kind of introduce yourselves and just share parts of your journey, then we can go straight into the situation part.
Okay, sure, yeah. So I guess for me, the backstory is that I was working in a bank for the beginning of my career, had a successful career there, and was sort of doing really well, but just feeling really unfulfilled, massively burnt out. I was, my health was declining. I had lots of unhealthy habits. I wasn't really living in alignment with the vision that I'd had for myself when I was younger, and so. At some point, it just all came to a head, and I sacked it all in and went traveling right at the start of the global pandemic. That got cut short, and then I had multiple attempts, tried to set up some other source of income in form of my own businesses to try to avoid having to go back into that same environment that I came from. And that sort of is the point that I was at when I first came across Jaineel and Thriving Scholar.
Yeah, and so whilst we're actually with you, let's just talk about that a bit. Like where, even before you reached out to me, where were things in life, and how were you feeling at that time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was just reflecting on this actually. That you can look at it from multiple perspectives, but I guess the two that sort of jump out are, one was that I'd really had time to reset and unwind, like my hyper stressed out kind of persona, always being on the go, never being able to stop, being, quite easily frustrated and wound up, that had all sort of cleared away. So I'd sort of solved half the puzzle in that sense, but at the same time, I'd lost my drive. I'd lost my direction. I had absolutely no idea where I was going. And like, I was trying all these things. I was paying a lot of money, investing a lot of money in myself, hoping that would turn itself into money. But at this point, I'd invested tens of thousands of pounds and actually hadn't made a penny since I'd left the previous job. So that was quite a scary time, really, because a year or so in, you start to really question yourself. Was it all a joke? Was everyone else right that it was a crazy idea? Am I just going to have to turn back up with my hat in my hand and say, hey, I need a job again, please can you help me out? In the go back to the old routine. So yeah, there was that sort of the two sides, right? The one was that I actually felt really free, but actually I was so free that I had no idea what I was doing, and so there was like a still a misalignment in that situation for me.
Yeah, and I really respect your journey because you were in the banking field, like you're a banker, and you're at a point where by that time you already quit your job, right? You quit your job and went traveling.
No, it was a big move, and the surprising thing was actually how many people who were sort of my peers in terms of my age group at the bank were like really, they all said like, oh, we would love to do that, but we just can't, because we have all these other commitments. And I guess that was how I felt even a few months prior to that, was that you can't just leave because you're basically giving up such a good opportunity. You got to look at it from perspective. You're quite lucky to get into a job like that. It's such a tough application process, so much competition that you'd be stupid just to throw it all away. But at some point you start to look at the people around you who are like 10 years on, and you realize that you don't want to be any of them. That actually that path is very there's a lot of certainty. You can predict what your life's going to look like, and that's kind of scary, boring. For a lot of us.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. What about you, Jaineel?
So my kind of background is did the normal things like most people. I went to the typical things that our parents expect of us. So went to college, went to university, got the degree, got the piece of paper, and then when I came out of after graduating, I actually then thought the normal thing to do is basically get a job. And I basically applied for, I think, about 20 jobs where I kind of came second all the time. So what I found is that nobody wanted me at that time, even though I was really hardworking, I had a really good mindset. And then that was my start to basically entrepreneurship. One of the recruitment consultants told me, like, Kun, you're just too entrepreneurial. So then that kind of got me on my quest to basically set up my first business. And then I ran my first business, which was really successful for about 6-7 years. And then I kind of, we caught up when I've always been a high achiever. So I was constantly like chasing things in life, like more money, more cars, a bigger house, better family. And at that point where externally to the world, I kind of achieved a lot of them things, I was still feeling really lost. So that's when, we got talking.
Like your journey is incredible because you already had such a successful business, and then you at the time when we were having conversations, you just exited a business, a highly successful business that you helped build with your brothers, and then you were in a place where you were like, I remember you mentioning to me, I want to consciously create my life now. That's what you were saying to me.
Yeah. So what I found is that after doing the exit, the way I pictured my life would be after achieving all these things, like having a nice family, nice house, money in the bank. The feeling that I was looking for wasn't there. It was just, it was even worse. So, it's just a really tough place to basically want to achieve something and then realize that that's not what you wanted.
So if you were to describe that emotion in a couple of words, like what words come to you at that time when you're feeling
just lost?
Yeah.
When the world tells you like these are things that are going to make you happy externally, and you get them and realize that you're not any happier, and that's when obviously we started talking about we kind of started identifying like getting really clear on what's going to drive me as a person, not the things I thought I was going to want. And for me, we figured out that it's just helping others. Like that's my natural role in my life, is just helping other people. That's when I'm most happy. And that's my new business. That's kind of helping people helping people. So
yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And what about you, Anand?
Well, when we first met, I'd actually been 9 months into the pandemic at that point, and I'm a physician by training. And after about 10 years of practice, I was starting to become a little bit more burnt out and disillusioned with medicine. I was feeling like I didn't really have, I again, like Kunal, had found a lot of things and success externally, but I was feeling more complacent, and I didn't really have any other goals to achieve. And so I kind of reached out, being a little lost and saying, I feel like that there's more, but I wasn't able to really figure out how to tap into that drive. And, there's a lot of distractions with everything that was going on and with family and stuff like that. So it was just a lot of excuses that were piling up, and I was kind of hoping to find a way to break through all that.
Yeah. I love you. I every single time I reflect on this with you, like, I don't know, like what comes to me, I'm just going to say it, share it, because it's just true for me. Like, you're the last person that I thought would reach out to me. Like, so for like,
to be perfectly honest, I was like, it was something that I was like, I would always look down upon. It was always a stigma, like, oh yeah, why would I need assistance from somebody else? I'm a physician. I've created this. I can do this. I don't need somebody else to tell me how to improve. But yeah, I think I surprised myself even a little bit reaching out.
Yeah, because obviously you're Pri, who's my wife's cousin in Chicago, and I guess that's how you came across my work. Because I was like, wow, he's actually reached out to me. That's pretty cool, man. So I really respect that in you. And even that, like you, like unlike Luke and Kunal, who had done a lot of personal development, kind of coaching or similar things before, you're someone who just came into it, didn't even know what. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you were completely new to this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd read like one book, like The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, and that kind of set me off a little bit into thinking about these types of things a little bit more. But I had no idea what coaching would entail, or really what to expect out of it. So it was a very pleasant and awesome experience overall.
Yeah. Cool. All right, man. So that's where things were. I think it was good for us to kind of reflect on that, because you're probably seeing now how much how far you've come on that journey since that time, right? For each of you individually, and even like even before joining Project Hero, because obviously you guys wanted to be part of this entrepreneurial kind of minded mastermind, I'd say. But you really didn't know what to expect. Like some of most of you came here with certain things, and I always kind of asking. I always ask you guys that, what is that you really want to get out of it? And so now, having been on that journey, would you say that some of the stuff that you wanted, you didn't even know you wanted?
Oh yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I guess it's hard to quantify, I suppose. Like a lot of the things that you focus on, it tend to be external, right? Like you want the money, you want the success, even the sort of the status, those sort of external things. And then along the way, you actually start to really develop aspects of your personality. You become better at I think that over this process, I've actually become better at listening, and like to other people, and also to myself, and to actually be a better judge of like internally when I need to rest and where I need to work hard, which is something that's very difficult to do before, because I felt like I always had to be working hard in order to be successful. There's like all these aspects where you can be too focused on being an overachiever. And yeah, they're very subtle shifts. You can't really, I guess, convey them accurately or precisely in a sentence, because it's relative to where you were before, but all these little things that just make life more enjoyable. You start to appreciate things a lot more. Yeah. That was my experience anyway.
Yeah, I love that. And you're kind of alluding to my next question, actually. And like one thing that we could reflect on is there's a couple of questions which I had. Number one is, who have you become over the last 12 months? So that's more like internal, like who have you become as a man? And then the second thing is, what have you achieved on the outside? So if we were to kind of go around the table and think about just who have you become in the last 12 months. And when you answer this question, don't hold back, man. Like, I want you to celebrate your own power, celebrate who you really are, celebrate your own greatness, because I know it's not coming from a place of ego, it's coming from a place of who you really are and your power. So yeah, who wants to go first? Like, who have you become, man?
Yeah, I'll go first. What I've realized, I'm talking about business at the minute. So what I created, everything I created before in the last 10 years was a creation of me, but it wasn't a true reflection of who I was. It's what the world wanted. And over the last 12 months, what I've realized that I can create who I really am. So the more I've tapped into who I am, that's what I can present the world. And I found that being myself is so easy, so that I can naturally just give that energy off to the world. And that's where my growth will come from in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. Beautiful. So what I'm hearing is like, you've developed the courage just to be yourself.
Just to be myself. And I found that I'm attracting the right opportunities, the right people in business, at home, just overall, because I'm just so connected with myself, and that's the work I've done with you guys over the last 12 months.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, I'd say definitely for me, actually, very similar. I was just thinking like one of the big things that I could say has changed is that, I've become really confident in myself. And, people before who worked with me used to say things like maybe I was a little bit arrogant. And I guess what's changed is that before I wanted everybody else to agree with me, whereas now I'm very happy to take my own path, and I don't need other people to agree with that. And in fact, I'm even curious now, if people don't agree with me, not to figure out who's right, but to actually see if I can blend both perspectives in, to sort of grow. And that's just, again, something which is hugely transformational. It's allowed me to, sit in rooms of people who, with very little experience, and actually be a leader and to actually, contribute meaningful things in both as a coach and as a consultant to businesses and to individual clients. So,
yeah, beautiful. What about you, Anand?
Yeah, I think it kind of falls a little bit along what Luke was saying. So I came in thinking, all this change was going to occur and that was going to lead to outward gain. And now not realizing what I wanted. And it was mostly that I don't give a shit anymore about other people and their opinions. And that was, we all want that. We all want the ability to walk through life bulletproof from everyone else's bullshit, but it's much easier said than done. And even now, it's still not easy, but I think my ability to shun that is so much better than it was a year ago. And that in itself offers a whole new breadth of opportunities that wouldn't be there before, because the fear that holds you back from so much of that crap isn't there. So then you venture out into paths that you wouldn't have gone out to before. And I think staying on that path, because again, that's when it's even harder, is not that initial step, but like 6 months out when things aren't going well and people are, louder about their opinion of you than not caring at that point. So, I think really that development has been the most profound thing for me over the past year.
Yeah. And how does that relate? Like, if you were to stick with you, Anand, like, what with that, and obviously there's more that's probably kind of that you've become as well. How has that led to external changes or success and things in life, like, whether it be in health, in your career, in the way that you have with business ideas and all that kind of stuff? Like, what, obviously with that's the internal stuff. Now, what about the external? How's your life changed or transformed outside of you?
Yeah, with that, I think the big thing was me quitting my job, and that was obviously
that's a big decision, man.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of flack associated with that from family and friends, in a sense that it was a bit shocking, but people were pretty well attuned to the fact that I wasn't happy where I was.
Yeah.
But now, even when I would pursue things and I'd pursue entrepreneurial ventures, it would be things that I would think that would be appropriate to me, somebody with my understanding level of knowledge, and not, you know, like what society would think of me to do appropriately. But now I'm like, there's no limit. Why be worried about what other people should think about my venture? You know, if I'm true to my venture and I think that this is a solid idea, then I'm going to put forth all my energy in doing that and not be held back by other people's limitations of, you really think you can achieve that? You know, so to me, that was a huge stepping point. So like, I've quit my job as a physician. I work really now in the Web3 space, doing like NFTs, cryptocurrencies, and things like that. And my ultimate goal is to really develop a place, you know, a physical place where it's like a shared workspace and people can get together and, you know, work on entrepreneurial ventures together. And so it's really early on, and you know, there's a lot of new cool ways to integrate NFTs and other technologies into this, and it would be something so far from my norm, but yet I don't really care at this point. I'm going to give it, you know, my 100% and see what happens. And you know, if it fails, it fails. If it succeeds, it succeeds. But I'm not going to worry about all the people telling me that it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, I love that. I'm hearing from all of you, it's like a freedom just to freaking be yourself and express who you are, and not worrying about what, you know, other people's, you know, limited stories about what's possible. That you're just sticking to what's true for you, and you sharing that with the world, which is amazing. And then whilst we're on you, actually, like I mean, we spoke about this on our last call that we just had this week, but your journey of finding clarity, because you mentioned a number of times on our calls that you were expecting this aha moment when angels and fairies are going to come and everything's going to make sense, right? But it hasn't. That you finding clarity, like we talked about the cake analogy in the last call, like it's been a journey of small steps, and it's been you know, talk to me about that.
And it's not all forward. And so that was the thing, right? I think that for me, it was never that, you know, like alcohol has always been the thing that's been there, but it's always, I felt, held me back to a very significant extent, because it's like so much time and energy is wasted in the pursuit of, like, you know, getting behind alcohol and all the secondary things that occur after that. And so, you know, you'd focus and you'd stay on the path and you try to improve, and you improve your daily habits, all that kind of stuff. And then you'd fall off. And, you know, and to that point, I'm like, man, this is like, you're doing so much work, you're reading so many books, you're meditating, you're doing all this stuff that they tell you to do, and you're like, what's going on? I'm like, I still get mad sometimes. Isn't this meditation thing supposed to make me calm and relax? Like, the hell's going on? This shit isn't doing anything. But then it's like, it really does take reflection. It takes time to really step back and say, because you get caught up in the daily all the time. When you take a step back, like, wow, there's growth. And it's like, man, that took a lot of work, but I see this little bit of change. And then recognizing that, I think, and consolidating it, since all this work we've done in the past year, has helped me realize that there is more change than I've even noticed. And it was not until I look back, then you're like, wow, you know, a little bit each day did add up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even like that first, I remember like one of the things was like, the first thing that you wanted to be consistent was with this training, and that, you know, or, you know, just going to the gym, and that feels like ages ago now, man. Like that's just who you are now.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. That's what I mean. It's like I would check in with these guys every day for 2 weeks straight, and that would be kind of my thing, to make sure that I was getting to the gym. And it was because I would always start and then I'd stop. I'd start and stop. And I don't think that was unique to me. I think lots of people throughout the world have issues with consistency and going to the gym, but it was different. Like we talked about creating that persona, you know, to be an inherent part of you. And I think that was the thing. It was changing it from a task to, you know, centering with your identity. And that was kind of the thing that really helped me to say, okay, you know, that's going to be a priority, because if that's who I'm going to identify as, and I'm going to be, you know, have integrity with my word, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. It's who you're being in the world, rather than what you're doing, isn't it? Love that. And we'll come on to a few things about what you said later on as well. So what about you, Kunal, Luke, like external, and don't hold back on this, like business, relationships, all these external things that you've created, just because I think a lot of people don't, especially as men, like our work, a lot of the work that we've done is on the inner work, like the who we are being in the world, and, you know, the space in our own minds. And sometimes it's very easy for us to be like, well, yeah, okay, that's great, that's all nice stuff, it's hunky-dory, but then what about my external success? Like I still want to make money, and we all do, right? And we still want to do X, Y, and Z. So this is the reason I'm asking that question, is actually from who you become, what have you now created for yourself? Like, let's just celebrate the achievements externally.
For me, again, it connects with the internal. For me, I'm so at peace with who I am and what I bring to the world that a lot of the external things that I was chasing before, I just don't need them. And just having, I feel like I'm at a place now where I've got enough. So anything I create is just a bonus. And I think that's such a cool place to be, because you're not chasing all the time. And I think when you're chasing something, it runs away from you.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the, I won't say a lot of external successes, but it's just being at peace with myself and not having to chase for the sake of chasing.
Yeah.
And I just get what I want now. Does that make sense? So it's the money will come to me as a result of the energy I give out.
Yeah.
It's just powerful. Like, you don't realize.
Yeah. I love that.
It's mad.
I'm smiling because it kind of reminds me of something which I heard. It's like, when you need nothing, you attract everything.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. And you're coming from this abundant. So, by the way, says the guy who built his business from scratch.
No,
and a year and a half ago, he's
hold on. He's downplaying his success. Doesn't he have like 8 employees? What's he doing? Yeah, come on, be honest. What's going on?
Yeah, this guy. Look at him.
But this is exactly what I mean. Like, I don't need anything, and everything I build is just a bonus. It's that place that anything I build from this moment forward is just.
Yeah, I love it. I love it because you just completely, what you've done here, you just focus on your inner peace. You've completely not ignored, but you've like the fact that you've just built a business from scratch and making a lot of money right now from a year and a half ago with where you were consciously. That's just a secondary thing for you. That's just happened from who you'll be like.
Yeah, this is completely natural for me. I just turn up every day at work and I just show up and I do the things I enjoy, and that my business is growing as a result of that.
Yeah.
There's not even bullshit. Like, this is like real.
Yeah.
There's never been the intention to like purposely grow my business. It's just grown. And that's where the strength is.
That is super powerful, man.
But I didn't even realize it was happening. That's the crazy thing. So
yeah, celebrate. Acknowledge yourself, man. Here, like, year and a half. Look what you've created.
I think because I've been there before.
Yeah.
And this is nothing for me. It's just like I'm just enjoying the journey. So there's not emphasis on hitting certain numbers. Like before, it was like hit £1 million, have this many employees. Like for me, it's pure growth, and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, you're complete. I'm hearing in your voice that you're just detached from it, man.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah,
I love it. Oh, damn. Okay, cool. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Kunal was saying there. I think, maybe more in hindsight rather than at the time, but going back to your first question, like where I was at when I met you, or started working with you. Obviously we knew each other before, but I was trying these things that people were telling me would make me a lot of money, but I was like focused on this end goal, and there's like obviously there's a very long initial period of learning and a steep learning curve that needs to happen at the beginning. And so when no results were materializing in the first few months, I was just getting disheartened and falling through and not being consistent. And I wasn't really actually that engaged with what I was doing. I was just doing it because the promise of the reward, right? Like it wasn't rewarding to me. I was just in it for the external reward. So then was like actually I started working on this project with some friends, and that got me doing something which I was actually interested by. I wasn't doing it for the money. I wasn't motivated. Well, maybe there was promise in it, but I was doing it. I was spending a lot of time on it because it's the kind of thing that I'm good at, and it genuinely excited me. It motivated me without needing that external reward. And then it was obviously through a lot of working with you guys that made me realize that there was the opportunity to turn that into an income generating activity. And so in terms of the external success that came off the back of that, now I've managed to pretty much near enough replace the income that I was making in a corporate environment which was amazing. That was always really my sort of end goal, was just to sort of get that, even if it's slightly less, it doesn't matter. It's like I was saying, it's enough. Like I feel like I have more than enough. I'm not trying to climb the ladder, but I am progressing. There's if I stay here for the next year, then I'm not going to be upset about it. That's just not the focus anymore, because I'm doing something that I enjoy. And there's a lot of variety to it as well. There's different aspects of my day which just change from week to week. It's not predictable at all. In fact, it was funny, you reminded me of something you were talking about with Anand, with the health and the other things that have appeared around the side of that. So one of the things that I've developed is if I'm really struggling with work and I'm not actually focused and I'm not getting anywhere, I just get up and go out and do some exercise. And today that exactly happened. I had a really unproductive morning. I went to the gym and did some cardio and some stretching. And while I was doing the cardio, I suddenly had this massive insight on how to suggest a new idea. Like, my client came to us with some feedback from a professor, and they wanted to sort of develop a new aspect of this app we're working on. And I suddenly saw, from a very high level, not like the actual thing, but so there's an example where actually it was arguably more productive for me to go to the gym than to stay sitting at my desk. And that's something that I never would have thought of before. I would have been like, oh, you have to be sat down working in order to produce value. So that's a massive, the fact that you can have it all, have all those different aspects of your life, and they don't necessarily detract from one another. They can actually build, they can actually add to each other as well.
I love that. And you're someone that I see, one thing which I really respect about you is you're so open to the more spirituality stuff. You always have been. You're part of a meditation group, and you're so into that, right? And then shaking his head there, I'm seeing you, bro. But
right. But then I wasn't even 3 or 4 years ago. That just wasn't who I was. I was always like a cold-hearted scientist. I could see the physical universe, and therefore I know what's going on. But I guess that was really the change that came along with that whole shift. Was I started to realize, that the only difference between me and other people is the way that I'm seeing the world. And so it's not as fixed as I think, because someone's able to sit there and produce insane amounts of value by doing very little, whereas I'm here churning my ass away, getting snowed under and not getting the end result that I want. But carry on.
Now you've got both. How powerful is that? Because you're extremely intellectual as an individual. You've been trained that way, and you use your intellectual mind so much. And now you've got the power of the place beyond the intellect, and you can, what I'm seeing, exactly what you just said there. You're doing some super intellectual work, but then you're listening to your intuition, and you want to get more in flow, and you're like, oh, actually, your intellectual mind might be like, well, you need to work harder at this problem. But then actually now you're like, you went for the run, you had it inside, boom, I just saved you 10 hours worth of whatever, hours.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's it. It's massively powerful to be able to sort of listen to your body and understand what it needs, and to recognize when, to do your work when you're at your peak. And it's obviously every day is like a sort of learning experience that you tweak around and play with it. There's no there's no hard and fast rules. Sometimes you maybe are working less than you could be. Sometimes you probably are producing a lot more without doing anything. It's a balance.
Yeah, amazing. And another thing that you've achieved, if you're open to share, your one thing you mentioned was about relationships. That's a huge win, man.
Yeah, no, exactly. And in all that time as well, I was able to, create a new relationship, and, I've just moved in recently with my partner, and it's been really enjoyable experience, as well as the business, the health, to have that sort of missing piece as well, to have that really sort of loving home environment. It's just, so much, so difficult to put into words how good all that is,
Yeah. And actually, as soon as you were saying that, it reminded me of, I think you mentioned that in one of our masterminds. That was maybe our first one or our second one. I can't remember if you remember. You mentioned that this is something that I want to create. You spoke it out into form. You spoke it out in using your language. You put it out there into the world, and it's not like you strategized on how you're going to get there. Well, you didn't necessarily do that with us anyway. You just, and it just, and the same thing happened with you creating, replacing your income. Like you've put it out there into the world, and then you just allowed it to happen. And it just, because you weren't getting in whichever way it came to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's like you said, I didn't do anything different to what I'd done in the past. There was no sort of massive like strategy. There was nothing that I had learned. It was just that my perspective of the situation had changed, and that opened up opportunities which I previously hadn't taken advantage of, or maybe wouldn't have been able to benefit from. So I think that's been a huge part of this last couple of years for me, is like noticing more of what's already there. Like it's actually less about going out and creating something completely from scratch. It's like there's always like stuff going on around us. It's like what do you pay attention to? And there's so many times when actually what you want is maybe just like one step away from what you can see, but because what you can see doesn't have any information that necessarily relates to what you want, we just dismiss things because we're all burnt out, short on time. So being open and curious to what's behind what you can see has opened up so many things.
Beautiful.
It's like a non-linear way of looking at things.
Yeah, love that. Cool.
Well,
go for it.
Piggyback off of that, because I was not as inclined to the spiritual aspect of things, and not that I'm fully on board yet, but this idea of like speaking into existence things you want and visualization, I was like never really behind. But I did notice that throughout the ideas of things that gave me energy, I was like, all right, I want to pursue this. And as I just spoke it out, because I was being honest about it, I wasn't so concerned about people's perception of it, that it gravitated people towards me that were interested in the same things. Obviously, as you're saying that out there, but more and more these opportunities that I would never have pursued or even thought possible were coming up, simply because I was stating it out there. And that type of sense, call it the universe pulling things towards you, whatever you want, but I could tell that there's a drastic difference when I started being honest and not caring and just saying this is what I want, and things did happen a little bit more frequently.
Yeah, I think what happens is that we put it out there but then we get out of our own way in order for us to bring it in, because a lot of times we say what we want, and then we just we just get back caught up in our own stories again as to why I can't do that, whatever. And
exactly.
And you're in this shell, and if you keep on being in the shell, you're just going to live that same story, and your life isn't going to really.
I was going to say that most of the times we end up like kind of roadblocking ourselves due to some of the beliefs that we have in the past. And again, doing the going back to the question you asked, doing the internal work lets you achieve any external things you want. But you have to get out. You have to do the internal work to get out your way in the first place. Just bringing that awareness back.
There's a interesting sort of contradiction, isn't there? That like as people who want to grow and achieve things you haven't achieved before, we're always trying to draw on our experience of the past. But by very definition, what we've achieved in the past is not the new thing that we've set our sight on for the future. So it's almost, I mean, it's not a bad place to start, but it's clearly not the complete picture. Like there's clearly something that you need on top of your previous experience, but so often we kind of limit the world to be only what we've experienced before, and then that's why we struggle so much to create the new thing, because we refuse to accept something extra on top that we need to finish the puzzle.
So good. So much wisdom in that. And then we're going to say something else.
No, that's fine. I'll let you go ahead.
Cool. All right, one question which I thought would be really cool to do is kind of reflect, because obviously you guys have, by the way, like for anyone who's listening, like these guys did not know each other before whatsoever. Like you've come into this group not knowing each other, and you've had such an incredible journey together. Every 2 weeks we've had these calls, and we've had the masterminds and stuff together, and it's we've developed a really strong bond and a relationship with each other. You've seen everyone's each other's journey in such a great way. So one question which I had, which I thought would be really cool to reflect on, is what's the one thing you see in the other two members that has really inspired you on your journey? So Luke, what do you see in Anand and Kunal that's really inspired you? Kunal, what do you see in Anand and Luke, and Anand, what do you see in Kunal and Luke that having been on this journey with them and seeing their growth, seeing their journey, because obviously each of you brings something different to the table. Each of you have your own value. What is it that you see in the other two that has inspired you, and that you've really learned from them? So
okay. I'll start.
Go for it.
So I'll start with Kunal. I aspire to be at that level where he is just, so content. I mean, he's at that point where there is no concern about the money or anything else like that. And that's, as you noted earlier, like the change on the inside, like I came into this thing with all these expectations of all these external successes, and wow, give it a year's worth of work and you're like, man, so many of those things are silly. And then your ambitions change. And I think my ambitions are changing. I don't think I fully aligned with where they need to be, but I think he's at a point where like I aspire to be in terms of my aspirations, where they're fully in line with exactly what I'm doing. So every day it's just like, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, not if.
Mm.
So I think that that's the thing that I was just like so inspired by, because he's just dedicated, and yeah, that's the ultimate.
Yeah. So that inner peace that you see, that and that detachment.
Yeah. And for Luke, it wasn't until probably like halfway through I realized how old he was. A decade younger than me. I mean, he's so far along his journey, and he has such amazing insights, every time. Just now, like 5 minutes ago, I'm like, man, that's just a really profound way of putting it. And I'm just blown away with his level of insight at his age. So, I mean, 10 more years of this, man, he's going to be up to some great things. So yeah, I'm so I'm so impressed by, his level of intelligence and insight that, I'm like, man, I gotta step it up. I gotta read more like him.
Thank you.
Cool.
I'll go next. And thanks, by the way. Really appreciate it. For Anand, I'd say what I'm attracted to you in it is just the energy that you bring. And I love that. And for me, it's just been lovely seeing you develop over the last 12 months, from where you started to now. I think out of all of us, you probably had the biggest change and transformation. I think that's just been amazing to see. And just your willingness to change, even though I've seen you kind of come up, create your own roadblocks along the way, but then you've actually just embraced it and gone with it. So that's been massive. And Luke, honestly, I'm not just saying this to make you feel good. You're destined for success. I can see it, because you've combined both parts of being an intellectual, but then also really understanding the world and understanding yourself more than anything. So I think there's no question that you're gonna go really far, and you're just so ambitious about what you're doing. So yeah.
Amazing.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, so for me, I think with Anand as well, it's there's just this level of commitment that he's shown throughout the year. Like you said, he maybe started on a sort of the steeper end of the learning curve, and there's been so many times this year when you've just come up against these challenges, but every time that you didn't succeed, you've come up again, you've reset the clock. Every time you've committed to something and you haven't been able to do it, you've just come back again and again and again, and that's just inspiring to see. And it's inspired me to sort of commit more to things that I probably wouldn't have committed to, because actually I've seen how valuable that's been for you, and it's inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
And with Kunal as well, it's there's just such a vision that Kunal brings in. He's always got these big ideas of what he wants to create. He's playing on a really big field. It's sort of where I want to be in a few years' time. Sort of being able to sort of look out across and come up with these new ideas and to create. And even if some of them don't come to be, you've always got something else lined up, and that's really where creation happens, right? So yeah, definitely both of them have inspired me so much on this journey.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that's really powerful, because sometimes we don't see in ourselves what other people see in us. And I think we did an exercise with that butterfly analogy, one of the masterminds, and that was really cool, right? How we kind of labeled all the different things that we see in each other. I just thought I would ask that question, because I think it's really powerful. And given the fact that you've spent so long together, and we've had these conversations in depth, this, everything that you guys have shared is real. It's not to blow each other's trumpets or anything like that. It's real. It's realness.
I was going to say, like, you guys as a collective probably know more about me than anybody else in the world. So it's and again, everything we've done is we've created safe space for us to like discuss these things. So it's powerful.
Actually, why do you think, like, would you say, like, this is a question that's come out of the blue, like, as men, why do you believe that we generally hold back from this kind of work more than, for example, women? Because, like, firstly, I respect all of you, because you've come into this and you've just kind of opened yourself up to go deep, because the work that we've done hasn't been top line strategic tips and tactics kind of level. It's been deep work, and I really respect you for that. And that's where the real transformation has really happened. But why do you think, as men, we hold back on this? Maybe, like, we would have, your previous version of you a few years ago may have held back on this at that time in life where you were, like, just kind of throwing that question out there.
I think it's for me, it's the stereotypes that we have as men. I think that's massively changing now. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everyone can see the shift that's happening. And I don't know about you guys, but in my house, it's like 60-40. And before, like, my mum and dad was like, dad's the breadwinner, and then, you know, my mum will look after the kids and family. But that's all changing now. So I think with men, you're just expected to get on with it. You know, provide for the family and don't complain and just get shit done. But I think that's changing now. Like, we're allowed to voice ourselves a lot more.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Anand?
I don't know about men versus women necessarily, but I guess from my perspective, you know, I think Anand mentioned at the beginning that, like, you know, in the past, I probably you know, wouldn't have really been open to people, you know, constructively discussing, or, you know, I wouldn't want to be voicing my concerns and problems to people because I would see that as a sign of weakness, right? Like, you know, sort of asking for help, asking for support. It's almost like, you know, and there's been points along the journey as well, I think, where it has been frustrating when you know, you come to the group and you say, I've got this problem, and someone points out something that's so mind-numbingly obvious that you actually almost get a bit angry that you didn't come up with it, you know, and, like, you kind of kick back a little bit. There's been a few points when I think that's happened. Yeah, you know, it definitely takes a lot of openness to actually sort of receive support from other people, and to sort of get past that initial ego step of wanting to have the best answer yourself, rather than, you know, I think Ray Dalio says, like, I want to be right. I don't care if I'm the person who comes up with the correct idea. I just want to be right, you know. Yeah, so I think there's definitely a big piece in there.
Yeah. Hey. Cool. And any other, Alan, do you have anything to say there?
No, I was gonna kind of echo what Luke said, I guess, because it's very similar, right? Because I would think, and that was kind of a big thing with the work, is we don't want to take a look at all the different things that you could potentially change, because it's hard to see that sometimes. And, you know, I think coming to terms with that, opening up to a group, and then being highlighted to the things that you don't necessarily want to be told, but I think it's very valuable. And so, you know, obviously with the stereotypes of, no, we're good, we can handle it, you know, just, you know, have a beer, shut up, you don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Very much that attitude. But, you know, that's, to Kunal and Luke's point, that's changing. And I think right now it's, you know, I think people are coming to terms with the idea that this is a very powerful tool that you could use to help change that idea.
Yeah, I think also what's changing is the fact that, like, people are realizing, in order for them to create the success that they want to create, it might be inner success, it might be external success, like, try do things by yourself all the time and let's see how far we get. You know, like, if you look at athletes in this world, there's a reason why they have nutritionists, fitness coaches, mind coaches, whatever. Like, they've got a team of people around them. If you look at the most kind of what society would deem as external success, like, for example, let's just say Ray Dalio, right? As Luke just mentioned him, he's got a whole network of people that he masterminds with, that he, you know, people that he has these conversations with. It's like, this is about getting out of our own way to achieve what it is that we really want to achieve internally and externally. And so I think that whole notion of trying to do things ourselves, and trying to create the success that we want to create, trying to create our lives by ourselves, because we see as this as something that it's not an education, it's more just it's a way of living, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of being in the world, it's a continual thing that we're always looking to grow and expand and become more. And I think people are more being a bit more open to that now, because they're seeing themselves as athletes, they're seeing themselves as someone who wants to achieve success more than just sticking to the linear route, which I see in all of you, right? So yeah, hats off to you, man. What's been the most hardest part of the journey? What's been like the time when you come onto the, Luke's kind of alluded to this, fucking hell, these guys are just talking the same thing, which I need to hear. What's been that moment? Has there been any moments for you that's been like, oh man, like, this is difficult, or what the hell am I doing here?
I found it really difficult. I think it was the ego side where I knew I wanted help. I wanted to improve. I wanted to get better. I wanted to be coached. I wanted to coach the people. But then when I actually committed to it and started it was like, do I really want to waste 2 hours speaking to, you guys? I could be doing something else. I could be with my family. I could be making money. I could be working on my business. So that really was really difficult at the start. So it's actually seeing, am I going to have value in talking to somebody for an hour and a half, 2 hours?
Yeah.
And then I just had to learn to just show up, because I compare it to like going to training. To the start, you really don't want to do it. But then by the end of it, you're like, wow, I've just received these insights. You've just almost like uncovered your blind spots that you've been telling yourself. So it's powerful. A bit like a training session, like you come out feeling amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Appreciate you sharing that. What about you? And then Luke? And I'm not going to take any offense to anything that you say, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So just completely go for it.
I don't think that there was any one really tough. I think honestly, I would take a gummy sometimes before our initial conversations, because I don't know these guys. I'm like, who the hell are these guys? I'm just going to talk. So no, it was hard being vulnerable in the beginning, but after that, I think it was just falling off, where it was like, life would get in the way. You'd have all this dedication to this idea of something improved, and then you'd kind of get knocked off, and it was, it'd set you back a little bit. But I think, over time it got better. But I don't think that there was any one time. I think it was, I look back on it pretty fondly. There was obviously ups and downs, but nothing too egregious.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think for me, it was like I was saying, that there's sometimes when I guess, the hard thing for me is sometimes when, someone tells you something that you already know, but it's like maybe you haven't quite applied it yet. But it's like there's then that sort of like, the initial reaction is like, I know that, like, don't you think do you think I'm stupid or what, like, and then but it's like, sometimes you just need to hear it again and again and again to get that insight, like Kunal was saying, like where the thing actually clicks. And when you get that insight, it's like all of those ideas and thoughts you had before, just like, it's irrelevant. Like the whole ego trip is gone when you actually realize that there is something that you can do. Having that agency to solve your own problems, it's key. But yeah, it can be difficult sometimes when you think you're doing something and then people suggest you do it and you're like, well, it takes some commitment.
Yeah, it takes courage as well, man. It takes courage to show up,
yeah,
kind of in that way, and be open to that kind of stuff. Cool. What's been your favorite part of either it be, I guess, yeah, what's been the most favorite part of this journey? And it doesn't, it could be within Project Hero itself, in terms of masterminds or group calls or whatever, or experimenting outside of it. What have you really enjoyed as part of this 12 months?
For me, it was I'm an introvert person at heart. So that's what I class myself as anyway. So I tend to spend a lot of time on my own. And then over time, what happens is you think that you're quite alone in the world, because you spend a lot of time by yourself, and you think all the problems I'm having in the world are very exclusive to me. And what I soon realized, when the guys are talking about the same things, the same problems, same things are coming up, I could almost hear myself a lot better in their experience. And so that was powerful, just realizing I'm not on my own, and I can learn from everybody else's experience as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the first thing that came to me as well. Is that, there'd be times when you'd come to the group and you'd think like, I don't really have anything to talk about, and then someone else would bring a problem forward, and you'd be like, actually, like I'm going through that same problem, but I was like too afraid to actually bring it to the group, or I didn't even think it was something that was a problem. Like I just didn't see it that way. But actually, even just listening to the other person going through and being coached, you start to actually have all these like insights and ideas yourself, and suddenly it opens up this new doorway that you didn't even know you were looking for, right? It's just incredibly powerful in that group environment to be able to sort of learn indirectly through other people.
Yeah, love that.
So one more thing is just seeing other people transform as well, because we spend most of our life so focused on ourselves, right? But when you can see other people changing, it's like it's so inspiring, and I'm really inspired by you guys. So I've got something to take away from it as well.
Yeah, love that. About you, Anna, anything from your end?
I don't know. Those are pretty good answers. No, I mean, it was just funny how much I was agreeing with both of them. I think it was kind of what Luke said about just walking in and really not knowing. Even in the beginning, we didn't know what Product Hero was. And then, and so, getting there and I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed to hear today, or this was something I was totally dealing with. And then, it was completely applicable. But also, I think Kunal mentioned it too, is by the end of the year, it was like training or, working out, and so much had changed. And it was that repetitive nature of every 2 weeks. It's like, you didn't know what you were getting. You're getting something and you're picking it up. And like, it's funny, I'm reading Turning Pro again. And I'm like, it's just like a tool you pick up. I'm like, oh yes, this is good. This is like another step in the right direction. So you've like got this tool belt of things now to navigate through that you didn't have before, as you picked up along the way through the year. So that's kind of my favorite part now. It's like, I feel more ready to, attack the world, if you will, in terms of things to do with understanding what I can deal with.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you just said there. It kind of reminds me of like the way I see this work as well. It's like a lot of the times we get marketed all kinds of hype, like so much hype out there in the world, quick fixes and all this kind of stuff. But it's not sexy when we say, oh, it's just doing the reps, everything, like just coming up, showing up on the calls and having these conversations every 2 weeks. And before you come on the call, you're like, am I actually going to get something out of it? I've got all this other stuff to do. When you come to it, you think, oh, I've got nothing to bring. But then someone else brings something, you're like, okay, that's what I needed to hear today. Like, that's exactly the message I needed today. And then you go out there into you do your thing, and it's just over time that happens consistently. And it doesn't sound sexy. Like the marketing of that would be really crap. Like, it would be really crap. But that's the truth of it. It's just doing the reps over consistency over and over again.
It's like, I'm reading that same book you told me to read 6 months ago, and it's like you have to read a book twice. Like, that's not going to help anybody understand the utility of it. But I went to that book without anybody telling me, and it was kind of the thing you needed at that point. And that's what it is. It's reinstilling so much of the things you've already learned. And most people like me who are looking for that aha moment, and the whole year makes you realize that there is no aha moment. That this like life is just work, and it's work daily. And if you don't, you're going to regress. And if so there has to be a minimum level input every day. And if you don't, you're going to end up back where you were. And so that was, I think, one of the hardest but best realizations too.
Gonna touch on one more thing, is that you don't always realize the value of a conversation in that moment. It's only 6 months, a year, 10 years that you realize how important that conversation or that period of your life was. And I think that we've had so many of them over the last 12 months. And we still don't realize the full extent or energy or power of what we've spoken, discussed, or we're talking about creating or tapping into.
But it's funny, this conversation, I think, is putting things in perspective that I don't think I would have without having this type of call, re-encapsulating everything, because it's like, even now it's consolidating so many views I had before, and it's different. I feel like, this helps put things in perspective a little bit that we didn't even encapsulate this before.
I think sorry, go on, Luke.
No, I was just saying, just it's interesting, like you only see the dots in hindsight, right? You can only connect them in hindsight. And so actually sitting down and looking at it, like I've actually not even really myself had a point where I've sat down and actually looked at it in this way, and it's just so
Crazy.
like rewarding to actually see the path and see how crazy the twists and turns in it were, from the other side, and to use that as inspiration to carry on when things get tough.
Yeah.
This work's not for the faint-hearted, is it really? Like to come to a group and get vulnerable, to really grow yourself. Like where I'd say like this group's like part of the top 5% of people that really want to go out and achieve the best in their lives.
Yeah, you're completely right. And it kind of reminds me like this, what you guys are saying just there, like especially in the kind of world that we live in today with dopamine hits, Amazon next day delivery, social media likes. This is the work where we want, and like, and then you kind of alluding to this as well, like we want to read books and we want to get that thing from that book and read the next one and read the next one and read the next one, get all this information. And we listen to podcasts, we get information. I've got all these books behind me right now, like a ton of information. But then that's great. These books have helped and they do so much, but there's a difference between transformation and information. And this is the game that we're playing here. It's not like Anna's reading the same books again, the same thing. I do the same thing. Like one of the books that we all read was Untethered Soul. Imagine how many times you'll read that book, even if that's one book that you'd read for the rest of your life. That's it. That imagine how powerful that could be, reading that 100 times.
Yeah,
going deeper and deeper and deeper.
It's funny because we think we're like this perfect thing of knowledge where we never forget anything, but it's like if you read the same book twice, like, oh my god, I didn't even realize it the first time I read it. That's like admitting the fact that we forget just as much as we learn, and we have to relearn all that stuff we forget if we don't. We're really not. And so that was such a big thing. It's like admit that you're not gonna know as much as you think you know, and that extends to so many things, but especially with this, it helped with that perspective.
Yeah, even on that point of reading books, actually, like the second time or third time, the fourth time you read it, you're in a completely different place of life than where you were in the first time. And so you take something completely different for where you are in that moment in time.
And I think that's what I'm going through this book now. I feel like I think I'm interpreting it differently than I would have on the first run through.
Yeah. This is like the power of this, like there's no linear way, it's like exponential work, because now, like the work that you've done over the last year and a half, no one can take that away from you. How amazing is that? No one can take this away from you.
That's
it's
what
who you've become now.
That's what I love, is that if we look at all the external things I have in my life right now, right? The houses, the cars, that can get taken away from me, but nobody can take away my knowledge or my experience. And that's true power. Like if I'd start again with zero, I could do it all over again and again and again, because this is the power.
Yeah.
It's the best investment, I've ever made.
Yeah.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. I'm honored that you even said that. Yeah. Wow.
That sentiment.
I just like say that. I've got to say that.
Get lost in there too.
Yeah. I even sold some Bitcoin to pay for this, and I still think it was a good investment.
Wow. That's saying something pretty cool. Thank you. Wow. Yeah, and I think what Kunal is alluding to is as well. I always say this, like, our innate creativity is our only security. Because your innate creativity, who you are, energy, infinite potential, infinite creativity, that is what, if all the banks get shut down tomorrow and they lose all of our money and your house gets whatever put away, what's left? It's your innate creativity. It's your ability to think, your ability to create something from your mind out into form. Like you just mentioned crypto, Luke, like again, that everything was first a concept in your own mind, and that ability to think of something and follow the process to create that into this world, like that's our true security.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. So no one's gonna take this work away from you now, which is really cool.
And the gift is that you can, a lot of the learnings I've had or insights, I've been able to put that back out into the world. So for me,
100%.
it's like good energy, good karma. The conversations I have with my children now have changed.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I never got taught any of that. I was never talked to in that way. And like, imagine the impact of doing that with your children, or, you know, your nephews and nieces and stuff, or other children of the world.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you mentioned that. That is the power in it. It's not just for yourself, it's who you lead, your children, the people that you lead at work, you know, everyone around you. And imagine when you create, as a leader yourself, you create more leaders around you. Imagine what people can create together in this world.
And also, no, I was just touching on what you just said. You're not just passing down, you're passing upwards as well. So like my parents and the way the conversations we have now completely changed, and it's incredible. They've seen the change in me, even though I'm sure most people get it. They never get acknowledgement from their parents that, okay, you know, like, oh, you're doing this, or you've improved, but it's just like the feeling that you get, the connection between two people, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What are you most proud of? I mean, we've only got a few minutes left, but 10 minutes or so. So one question which I had was, what are you most proud of yourself for on this journey?
Do you guys mind if I go first?
Go for it.
Go for it, man.
I really, I think I went to, for the first time in my life, I'd probably say I went to a dark place where I felt, there's always one to give stick to other people, saying like depression is like a choice, and, you know, like you can get out of it. But then I actually myself went into quite a dark place, and the ability that I had to pull myself out of it on my own without any external help, I think that, I mean, with the work we've done combined with that, I think that's been the biggest gift, is that I've now got, like, bit like what Anand said, I've got the tools now, I've got the connections to pull myself out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
So if it happens again, I'm already primed, basically. If I get in trouble, I know how to get myself out of there. So
yeah. Amazing. Appreciate you sharing that, man. It's powerful. What about you two? What are you most proud of?
I think for me, you know, there's just been a few moments, you know, in the last year when, or, you know, particularly more recently, where just like I've been acknowledged by sort of long-term friends, and they've been like, wow, you know, it's like really inspirational, you know, to see the change that's happened in you. It's in like, you know, the sort of the change maybe you don't even see in yourself. You know, and they just turn around and go, I'm so proud of you that, you know, you went off and did it, and like you took such a big risk, and it's all like working out for you. Like, you know, that's to be acknowledged, you know, for the work you've done. It doesn't happen very often. You know, a lot of the stuff, yeah, is you just do it for yourself, really, you know. But it is nice to be acknowledged sometimes for certain things. So
yeah, I'm hearing like you were just being proud of you following your path, regardless at that time when people didn't understand what you were doing, or, you know, the work that you're doing, like, but you stuck to what's true for you. And then now you've been on this journey, and now other people have seen who you've become and now inspired by you.
Yeah, and I guess also as part of that was like, you know, dropping things that weren't serving me anymore. Like, even if I'd spent a lot of money on them, there was definitely like a lot of twists and turns in the way where, you know, I tried to throw money at things that didn't work out, and just being able to just go, you know, this isn't me, this isn't who I am, and to just let go of them, and to just not dwell on them. You know, once it's gone, right? Like, life is really in the moment. So focusing on what's real and present now, rather than the past and the future, and just living it. You know, I'm quite proud to be able to do that now more. Not all the time, I guess, but
yeah. Well, still we're all work in progress.
On the journey. Yeah.
This is a lifelong journey. This is, appreciate sharing that. What about you, Anand?
I think probably just the commitment aspect of it. You know, I was able to come to like almost all the calls, and I've always been great at starting things. Never been great at completing things. So that was, you know, something I was really proud of, was making sure that I was able to get through. And then, you know, through that, I was able to kind of get my health back in order a little bit more, you know, cut down a lot of other unhealthy habits. And so, you know, still a lot of work to be done, and things aren't perfect, but I think, like we've mentioned before, it's getting back out there with better tools and better recovery time, so it's becoming less, and every day there's going to be progression, and I think from where I'm at a year ago, it's been significantly improved.
Yeah, you're really in a place now where you're probably not used to being in a place where there's no kind of job security, but you're rocking it, man. You're loving it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but we'll see. I think we have a little bit more time, but I think I'm gonna enjoy this freedom of just exploring what makes me happiest and kind of seeing where it takes me.
Yeah, so good. Cool. So a couple of final questions which I had was for someone who doesn't really know what this kind of work is, what Project Hero is, what Thriving Scholar is, what coaching is like. How would you describe this to someone who hasn't got a freaking clue what this is? This is a very difficult question. I find it difficult. That's what I'm asking you. Anand's already shaking his head. Like, how would you describe what this is? In your own words, what's true for you?
I'll go first. I think people, have actually got a very good intuitive sense of what they are aligned to. When you actually slow down and listen to your own inner voice, there is actually a clear sort of path that starts to express itself for you. And so what this work is it's a form of practice that enables you to start slowing down more. And by having other people, especially, when you have your own thoughts, it's very difficult to differentiate, I guess, between thoughts that are just noise and thoughts that are really leading you down some path. And that's because you've been experiencing those thoughts on a daily basis. So you sort of, you're looking at the problem from inside the problem, where somebody else listening to you who is not attached to those thoughts because they're not their own thoughts can reflect back at you what you're saying. And so ultimately you're always arriving at your own insights. Like, so we can share with each other our experiences, and that might be inspirational, maybe even some ideas. Like, I think you guys were the ones who encouraged me to take on the job as an IT consultant, set up my current business. That was an idea for me, but ultimately the actual actioning of that idea had to come from me, right? Like, you can only ever give like a high level reflection. The day to day, what you actually get up and do is always going to come from you. And so one call, 2 hours a week, you can't lay out like these are all the steps you have to follow, and this is what we're telling you to do because it worked for that guy and we're selling this. It's none of that. It's enabling you to follow your own path and to create from that space of alignment.
Well, I love that.
Wow. Love that end bit particularly.
I just thought of, like, for me, it's like an onion, and you're just unpeeling week by week a layer and a layer and layer. Exactly what Luke said, right in the middle is like the raw onion, like that's your true self.
Yeah.
And when you're just raw, and then you can just give yourself to the world from that moment. But there's a lot of layers that you need to peel off over time. It's not a quick fix. It's a slow process. It's a long process. Yeah, that's the beautiful analogy. It's the unlayering, and this form of coaching creates the space that you need to get the insights, then unlayer. Yeah, I really love what you're saying there, because my way of approaching this is, none of you guys needed help. No one needs help. You don't need help. You were all already whole and complete as you are. You're already whole. You already have this inner greatness within you. But this journey was more like getting out your own way so you can let that greatness shine. That's what this is. This is the way I see it. It's like what you mentioned, like taking all this other noise and other stuff off layers, so then you can just be who you really are. Which is kind of coming back to what the first part of this call was. That we were talking about, you just being free to be and be yourself and self-express. You in this world, you can create whatever the hell you want. You can be whoever the hell you want as well. Yeah. like no, exactly what you said. Like we've already got everything we already need.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think, connecting with that you can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
So there's no label on who you are.
Yeah.
Society can't do anything. Like you can create anything you want.
Yeah.
That gives me goosebumps, just the thought of that. Like anybody in this world can do anything they want. It's just most times they're stopping themselves. In fact, 100% of the times they're stopping themselves from achieving what they want.
Yeah.
When you know that secret, that's when magic happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be indirect as well, I guess, because you might not even realize that what you're doing is holding you back because you can't see it, right? Because it hasn't happened yet. So so what we were saying earlier, it's like you don't see the opportunity that's one step away from what you see now. You just see what you see now, but you keep making the same decisions you've always made and wonder why you don't get the new outcome. It's like, it's not like you're intentionally obstructing yourself, but it's like difficult to see from that perspective.
Yeah.
I guess that's where, when we're having these conversations, that's when you've got a space, a safe space where all the stuff up here can get out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Because yes, it's only once we kind of bring it to the table from the subconscious into the conscious, and then we can let go of it. But sometimes it's quite scary if it, outside of this space to share that maybe with people, and it's like, then it's just sometimes it can just be amplified even more. So
yeah, I think the word that I thought of when you're like, how do you describe this work? I would say a mirror, because there's rarely a time you take a mirror back on yourself and look, and then it's like, oh, and then there's so many truths that you learn, and you're like, oh, okay. And I think that's the biggest thing, where it's like you learn a lot more about yourself than you realize, and you hear it through other stories, and you see it through discussion, and it helps you understand that, one, you're not alone in being this way, but there's lots of ways to change and improve. But yeah, just the mirror aspect of it.
Yeah,
everything they said.
Yeah. And so like we've there's a new group of Project Hero starting next month with this more men who are joining. What advice would you give to them for them to make the most out of the group and this journey? What would you say to them? How would you, given you've been through this journey, what's your advice to them to make the most out of it?
Sorry.
I'd say a couple of things. So one is just lean in, show up, and the other thing is just trust the process. Like things will unravel as you go along. Don't create expectations of things. It's like the aha moment. Like it won't happen. But over time, like things will work out for you.
Yeah. What about you, Anand?
I was just gonna say, just show up. Make sure you're there every 2 weeks, because whether you realize in the beginning or not, it'll make a difference. And yeah.
That was an old Grant Cardone thing. He used to say, like, just show up, people. Just show up. I think from my perspective as well, that there's an easy thing as well you can maybe do to help yourself when you show up, which is, there's basically always this temptation as well. You're already setting aside, 90 minutes for the call, but if you can take a bit of time to transition from whatever you're doing before into the call. The times when I've sort of shown up at the last minute, having been frantically working on something, you're already in a more like closed-minded state when you arrive at the call, because you're very much like in the pattern of seeing the world from the limited perspective of the problem as you currently conceive it. And so to just take like 10 minutes to have like a cup of tea, or to even do some exercise, clear your head, have a shower, like all those things, and then you arrive like fresh. Just there's so much more value to be gained by being like sort of in a safe, restful state when you arrive at those calls.
I was going to add one more point, is just being vulnerable. Like going into the sessions, like the way I see it is the more vulnerable you are, the more you put in, the more you're going to get back out again. So the more you hold back, that's just going to limit what you get back out of the session. So
Yeah.
And there's definitely like a trust process with that evolves through the year. I think we all progressively, as the year went on, came with bigger and bigger, or not bigger, but things that we were less comfortable sharing at the beginning, maybe as we started to get a feeling for it. So it's yeah, it's definitely something you get used to.
Yeah. Cool. My last question is, okay, what's next for you guys? So you share more about what you're working on right now. What's your mission? Because then obviously what I can do is, if anyone's interested in in connecting with you, I can share details in the comments below. So yeah, share what's your focus right now? What mission are you on right now?
I'll go first again. Yes, two kind of core things. Well, three things. So one is my consultancy business. So it's a coaching academy, teaching people how to build, scale, and then sell Amazon businesses. But I'm also doing that myself as well. So I'm almost what I'm pitching to everyone else. I'm going through the whole process. So I'm building that business as well. And the final thing is just being more of who I really am. Continuing with this work. For me, it's a lifelong process now. So it's just connecting, meeting people, like just enjoying it, being more present and being in the moment, just loving life. So
yeah. Actually, before I this is coming to me, I was going to say, we've forgotten actually the fact that have you guys had fun on this journey? That's one thing that we've always kind of tried to do more, actually just have crack joke and have fun. Like, this is, even though it's quite deep conversation sometimes, but yes, it's been a fun journey, right? Well, I think
the award goes to, I think Anand comes out with some funny stuff. Luke as well. Luke will throw some bits in as well. But Anand just I think I see him sometimes laughing to his own jokes. So he's cracking jokes in his head, and there's just a big smile on his face. I think a couple of times in the year where I've just felt like just laughing out loud, and I've kind of held in. But yeah, it's just it has been fun.
Cool. The mission, yeah. So yeah, Luke, do you want to share what you're currently focused on right now? What's the mission for you?
Yeah, sure. So my main focus is my IT consultancy business, and the area that is really interesting to me at the moment that I'm choosing to specialize in is in developing applications for machine learning tools. I think it's the industry, the technology has grown so fast that business really hasn't caught up with how much it can utilize, a bit like the internet, stuff like that. It's one of these things that will just continue to dominate and sort of make everyone's lives easier. So I really enjoy working on those problems, and so I'm always looking for fresh opportunities to bring my expertise in that area and help to sort of solve these big business challenges in simple ways that makes people's lives easier and adds productivity to the economy and all that good stuff. So that's where you'll find me.
Amazing. Cool. By Anand.
So I've kind of transitioned from medicine fully over to the Web3 space. So I'm doing a lot of NFT work now, and I'm ideally working to create an NFT with a couple restaurants, and then see if there's opportunity to use NFTs for real estate development. There's been a couple of companies that have done it before, so we're kind of in the midst of exploring opportunities with that right now. So basically, like NFT, cryptocurrency, and Web3 development space. Amazing,
man. Exciting stuff. Well, I'm looking forward to doing another reunion at some point, and is seeing even imagine, I think Kunal mentioned this earlier, imagine the insights that you will get over the next few years, even months and years to come, and kind of looking back at this year, even from a time point further down the line right now. So I'm super excited to see how the journey unfolds for everyone. And we got Spartan coming up.
I was going to say we've got Spartan. Let's not forget.
Let's not forget that.
See you guys on the battlefield in 2 months.
I'm off for a run.
Yeah. Cool. So look, I just want to acknowledge you all, really, just to appreciate every single one of you. You guys have shown up. You guys have kind of support each other. You've been such an amazing group of people who I'm inspired by. I'm inspired by each of you, just the way that you've shown up and done the work, and brought your own value to the table. It's been such an enjoyable experience for me. And this initially started off as a test for me. Like, it was just my MVP of something which I wanted to create for men. And I found it to be
MVP.
What was that?
It's a pretty good MVP.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. It's and now, you know, just from my own business kind of learning perspective, it's something which I'm really kind of looking to go deeper in on this space, and kind of have left more of the corporate stuff and doing more of this Project Hero and working with people like you, really, which I love, because it's like working with people like me, really, like people who are entrepreneurial, people who want to have fun, people want to see this as a lifestyle, people who want to go out there and do big things in the world and really just contribute and make an impact and lead. And so, yeah, I appreciate you guys. It's just the way that you've shown up, and for, you know, on behalf of anyone that's listening, thank you for sharing your story and being open to doing that, because I'm sure, you know, you going out there and sharing this with other people, sharing your story with other people, it's courageous, but also it's really impactful for other people's journey. You probably don't realize how much of an impact you can have on other people by you sharing, you know, the incredible journey that you've been on. So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, and massive thanks to you, Jaineel, because I've worked with quite a few different coaches, and I think, you know, it always continues to amaze me, your ability to really listen to us and to really help to guide us in our journey, and to reflect back at us what we need to hear. So thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, just really appreciate you as a person and everything. The way I think is that none of this would have been possible if, you know, even though we're the MVP, like, again, if it wasn't that creation moment for you, like, this wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be sitting here at the minute. So just wanted to take time to say thanks.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to echo their sentiments and say, man, it's been an amazing journey. I can't thank you enough for how awesome it's been.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you guys.